I'm going to look around anyway. Then I'll join you fellows up there."
"What was it?" the shaken girl asked. "I think that I remember your saying V2 gas. That's forbidden. Anyway, I owe you my life, Conway, and I'll never forget it. Never. Thanks. But the others, how about all the rest of us?"
"It was V2, and it is forbidden," Costigan replied grimly, eyes fast upon the flashing plate, whose point of projection was now deep in the bowels of the vessel. "The penalty for using it or having it is death on sight. Gangsters and pirates use it, since they have nothing to lose, being on the death list already. As for your life, I haven't saved it yet. You may wish I'd let it ride before we get done. The others are too far gone for oxygen. Couldn't have brought even you around a few seconds later, quick as I got to you. But there's a sure antidote. We all carry it in a lockbox in our armor. We all know how to use it, because crooks all use V2, and so we're always expecting it. But since the air will be pure again in half an hour, we'll be able to revive the others easily enough if we can get by with whatever is going to happen next. There's the bird that did it, right in the air room. It's the chief engineer's suit. But that isn't Franklin that's in it. Some passenger, disguised, slugged the chief, took his suit and projectors, hole in duct. Psst! All washed out. Maybe that's all he was scheduled to do to us in this performance, but he'll do nothing else in this life."
"Don't go down there," protested the girl. "His suit is so much better than that emergency suit you're wearing, and he's got Mr. Franklin's Lewiston besides."
"Don't be an idiot," he snapped. "We can't have a live pirate aboard. We're going to be altogether too busy with outsiders directly. Don't worry, I'm not going to give him a break. I'm taking a Standish, and I'll rub him out like a blot. Stay right here until I come back after you," he commanded, and the heavy, vacuum-insulated door of the lifeboat clanged shut behind him as he leaped out into the promenade. Straight across the saloon he made his way, paying no attention to the inert forms scattered here and there. Going up to a blank wall, he manipulated an almost invisible dial set flush with its surface, swung a heavy door aside, and lifted out the Standish. A fearsome weapon. Squat, huge, and heavy, it resembled somewhat an overgrown machine rifle, but one possessing a thick, short telescope, with several opaque condensing lenses and parabolic reflectors. Laboring under the weight of the thing, he strode along corridors and clambered heavily down short stairways. Finally he came to the purifier room, and grinned savagely as he saw the greenish haze of light obscuring the door and walls. The shield was still in place. The pirate was still inside, still flooding with the terrible V2 the Hyperion's primary air. He set his peculiar weapon down, unfolded its 3 massive legs, crouched down behind it, and threw in a switch. Dull red beams of frightful intensity shot from the reflectors, and sparks, almost of lightning proportions, leaped from the shielding screen under their impact. Roaring and snapping, the conflict went on for seconds. Then, under the superior force of the Standish, the greenish radiance gave way. Behind it, the metal of the door ran the gamut of color: red, yellow, blinding whiter, then literally exploded, molten, vaporized, burned away. Through the aperture thus made, Costigan could plainly see the pirate in the space armor of the chief engineer, an armor which was proof against rifle fire, and which could reflect and neutralize for some little time even the terrific beam Costigan was employing. Nor was the pirate unarmed. A vicious flare of incandescence leaped from his Lewiston, to spend its force in spitting, crackling pyrotechnics against the ether wall of the squat and monstrous Standish. But Costigan's infernal machine did not rely only upon vibratory destruction. At almost the first flash of the pirate's weapon, the officer touched a trigger. There was a double report, ear-shattering in that narrowly confined space, and the pirate's body literally flew into mist as a half-kilogram shell tore through his armor and exploded. Costigan shut off his beam, and, with not the slightest softening of one hard lineament, stared around the air room, making sure that no serious damage had been done to the vital machinery of the air purifier. the very lungs of the great spaceship. Dismounting the Standish, he lugged it back up to the main saloon, replaced it in its safe, and again set the combination lock. Thence to the lifeboat, where Clio cried out in relief as she saw that he was unhurt.
"Oh, Conway! I've been so afraid something would happen to you!" she exclaimed, as he led her rapidly upward toward the control room. "Of course you—" She paused.
"Sure," he replied laconically. "Nothing to it. How do you feel? About back to normal?"
"All right, I think. Except for being scared to death and just about out of control. I don't suppose that I'll be good for anything, but whatever I can do, count me in on."
"Fine. You may be needed at that. Everybody's out, apparently, except those who, like me, had a warning and could hold their breath until they got to their suits."
"But how did you know what it was? You can't see it, nor smell it, nor anything."
"You inhaled a second before I did, and I saw your eyes. I've been in it before, and when you see a man get a jolt of that stuff just once, you never forget it. The engineers down below got it first, of course. It must have wiped them out. Then we got it in the saloon. Your passing out warned me, and luckily I had enough breath left to give the word. Quite a few of the fellows up above should have had time to get away. We'll see 'em all in the control room."
"I suppose that was why you revived me, in payment for so kindly warning you of the gas attack?"
The girl laughed, shaky but game. "Something like that, probably," he answered lightly. "Here we are. Now we'll soon find out what's going to happen next." In the control room they saw at least a dozen armored figures, not now rushing about, but seated at their instruments, tense and ready. Fortunate it was that Costigan, veteran of space as he was, though young in years, had been down in the saloon. Fortunate that he had been familiar with that horrible outlawed gas. Fortunate that he had had the presence of mind enough and sheer physical stamina enough to send his warning without allowing one paralyzing trace to enter his own lungs. Captain Bradley, the men on watch, and several other officers in their quarters or in the wardrooms, space-hardened veterans all, had obeyed instantly and without question the amplifier's gas command to get tight. Exhaling or inhaling, their air passages had snapped as that dread V2 was heard, and they had literally jumped into their armored suits of space, flushing them out with volume after volume of unquestionable air, holding their breath to the last possible second, until their straining lungs could endure no more. Costigan waved the girl to a vacant bench, cautiously changed into his own armor from the emergency suit he had been wearing, and approached the captain. "Anything in sight, sir?" he asked, saluting. "They should have started something before this." "They've started, but we can't locate them. We tried to send out a general sector alarm, but that had hardly started when they blanketed our wave. Look at that." Following the captain's eyes, Costigan stared at the high-powered set of the ship's operator. Upon the plate, instead of a moving, living, three-dimensional picture, there was a flashing glare of blinding white light. From the speaker, instead of intelligible speech, was issuing a roaring, crackling stream of noise. "It's impossible!" Bradley burst out violently. "There's not a gram of metal inside the fourth zone, within 100,000 kilometers, and yet they must be close to send such a wave as that. But the second thinks not. What do you think, Costigan?" The bluff commander, reactionary and of the old school as was his breed, was furious, baffled, raging inwardly to come to grips with the invisible and undetectable foe. Face to face with the inexplicable, however, he listened to the younger men with unusual tolerance. "It's not only possible, it's quite evident that they've got something we haven't." Costigan's voice was bitter. "But why shouldn't they have? Service ships never get anything until it's been experimented with for years, but pirates and such always get the new stuff as soon as it's discovered. The only good thing I can see is that we got part of a message away, and the scouts can trace that interference out there. But the pirates know that too. It won't be long now," he concluded grimly. He spoke truly. Before another word was spoken, the outer screen flared white under a beam of terrific power, and simultaneously